Talofa lava, nisambula minaka, yagoe, and warmest Pacific greetings. Welcome to the Adaptation and Resilience thematic session. My name is Brianna Fruean, and it is my pleasure to be your moderator for today. I am very honored to be joined by an amazing lineup of panelists. We have Pelenise Alofa, Gareth Quity, Tafau, and Salote Soqo. And if I've messed up any pronunciation of your name, please call me out so I can come correct next time I say it. I'm very excited to be a part of this thematic session because it is one of great importance when talking about climate change. Communities across the Pacific are working with many organizations to address multiple societal challenges, providing benefits for both human well-being and biodiversity in the face of climate impact. Collective actions encourage the conservation, rehabilitation, management of natural and semi-natural ecosystems, and adaptation increasing due to climate impact. This session will highlight the adaptation and resilience of our communities and draw on the synergies of the existing efforts with global nature-based solutions. It will also highlight the importance of the inclusion of youth when talking about these issues and when talking about resilience. And so for today, or for this session, we have 3 guiding questions, which I will pose to all of the speakers. The first one is, what are some of the adaptation success stories that you would like to share with our audience? The second question is, how can communities and organizations ensure their approach to climate action and resilience take into account community resilience? And the third, how are you and your organizations actively ensuring youth are brought into your work? And so I will also paste the questions into the chat, or if any of the tech team is able to do that, that would be amazing. And so we actually have the first speaker to be Pelenise, but I'm wondering if she's on yet. If not, we can go to the second speaker. Is Pelenise on?
She hasn't joined yet.
Okay, so we'll go to the second speaker. And so for all of you watching, please write any questions you have in the Q&A function. So there's a little box on the right of your screen that's separate from the comment box, and just write any questions, or even if you have any comments of support for our panelists, put them in there, and then at the end, I could read them out and go from there with an open talanoa. So the first speaker I would invite to take the stage, the virtual stage, would be none other than Salote. I'm very happy to have you on the call, Salote. Salote has 16 years of professional experience in the field of environmental management and climate justice, a lifetime commitment to those upholding human rights and who are unjustly experiencing environmental degradation. She has an amazing portfolio and an amazing bio, and I encourage all of you to go onto the website and read all of the amazing work that she is doing. But for now, if I could invite Salote to take the stage.
Brianna, it's so good to see you. Bulavinaka to my fellow speakers, and to our audience, particularly to our youths and young leaders who are tuning in today from around the Pacific and from around the world. It's such an honor to be here, to be joining this conference, and to be on this esteemed panel. So I work for the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, which is an international human rights organization. And we partner with grassroots leaders, grassroots groups, organizations from around the world to dismantle systems of oppression and advance human rights. And we have the honor of supporting a number of organizations to build adaptation and resilience in the Pacific Islands. So I think to respond to the three questions that Brianna has shared, I'm going to start with sort of a framing, just based on the work that we do and the partners that we support, particularly in the Pacific. And firstly, I think it's really important for us to recognize that climate change is a manifestation of the various systems of oppression that we live in today. White supremacy, colonization, which brought about industrialization and genocide of indigenous peoples from their ancestral lands, patriarchal forms of resource extraction and resource management, the corporatization of our natural resources that puts profit over people, which at its core is what we're fighting against. So I share this to acknowledge that adaptation and strategy and resiliency rather, and the stories that our speakers will be sharing today are occurring despite the various forms of systemic oppression that are the roots of the climate crisis, as Brianna has mentioned. And that in itself is a powerful form of resistance, and it's an active form of dismantling systemic oppression, which are in themselves forms of resilience and adaptation. So I would encourage us to shift our framing of this question from, what are success stories of adaptation and resilience, to affirming that Pacific adaptation and resilience is our form of resistance. And because it is rooted in our power, in our knowledge, in our people as Pacific Islanders, it is powerful, it is needed, and it is our form of resilience. So that's something that we have learned from our partners, including Brianna and the Pacific Climate Warriors, and other partners around the world, and we really take it into heart and try to internally within our own organization, as a very white-born organization based in the global north, we're trying to really make sure that we incorporate that into everything that we do. To my second point, so UUSC is a funder and an advocacy organization. So my job within the organization is to develop our strategy on climate justice. So that strategy informs, where we are investing our funds and our services into, in making sure that we are supporting the right partners, that we're in the right relationship with each other, and so forth. So through my job, I have the privilege of hearing and learning about the various strategies and thought processes that our partners are working on to build adaptation and resilience. So I get the privilege of getting a glimpse of what happens in the back end, understanding the why, the who, where and hows that organizations or groups base their work on. So from where I sit, I see adaptation and resilience as multi-dimensional. The actual adaptation and resilience projects, whether it's food security or water security, a community bridge, a community garden, or the development of a community-based relocation plan, that is only one aspect of adaptation and resilience. I also look at the organization or the group that is managing these projects. What is their strength? What is their capacity to do this work? How are their finances? How are they taking care of themselves? And why are they doing this work? And for whom are they doing this work for? So adaptation and resiliency projects are not going to build themselves. We can't just wave a wand and then a whole mangrove plantation will, spur from the ground. So I think it's really important for us to look and also focus on who is doing the work and how they are fortifying themselves and their organizations so that these projects can be sustained, that these projects can be sustainable for the long term and effective. That's the only way that projects are sustainable and effective, I believe, is if it's from the ground up and it's done by the people who are really invested in these issues. And I feel that is also one factor that determines whether or not, a project is going to be successful or not. So in all of, the work that I do, I've had the privilege of supporting grassroots, in the Pacific, in various states in the United States, in various countries in South and Central America and in Africa. There are two things that I think really sort of reflect the resilience or the strength and the resistance of organizations. And one is that their work is grounded in community. It forms the work that they do, how they work, how they shape the narrative. Community is what inspires their work. It's what grounds their work. And this is an important factor that I look for in human rights work. Those most impacted by human rights issues are the ones that should be leading the work because they know best the solutions that work for them. And that's something that we always try and make sure is there. And that's something that I've seen across all of our partners. And the second is just their natural ability to find connections with everything. You know, I started this work like 16 years ago, but I didn't learn about intersectionality until maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So it's a relatively new term that I think the movement is trying to really inherit and practice. But grassroots groups and leaders, they've been doing this for years and for ages. They've been practicing it without even like making such a big deal out of it like we do today. You talk to them about one problem and they'll connect it to every single aspect of society and how that problem affects other things in their community. So I really think this ability to connect outside of the siloed spaces that we work in is just it's just like a great asset that organizations that we support have. It allows them to be in solidarity with others way beyond an organization like us can be in. It allows them to learn and share their knowledge and information. It allows them to mobilize and activate people. And they're always willing to try out different things for the betterment of their community. So I think that's a really important key aspect. With a third question, how does UUSC actively ensure youths in our work? I would say that, currently half of our partners are youth. I think maybe three-quarters are either youth-led or involve youths in their work. We're excited to be supporting groups like Joe Jickham in the Marshall Islands, Live and Learn, Kiribati and Mama Pele joins, Tulele Pesa in Papua New Guinea, which is a very heavy youth-focused work, the Pacific Climate Warriors. And aside from our funding, we try to ensure that we are being intentional in our advocacy about lifting up and supporting youth voices, whether it's at COP26 or at COPs, all COPs, the high-level political forum, or even at the U.S. Congress. That's where we have the most leverage because we are a U.S.-based organization. So we are being intentional about making sure that youths from not only within the United States but around the world are able to use us. We'll get out of the way. They just need to use our access and our privilege to these spaces to do their thing. So I'll stop there and hand it back to you, Brianna. Thank you.
Rinaka Salote, that was such beautiful sharing, and you gifted us with so many gems. Something that really stood out to me, or a few things that stood out to me in your sharing, was the importance of recognizing that intersectionality and that climate change, like you said, is a symptom of repressive systems, and that adaptation and resilience happens already despite all of the other symptoms of these oppressive structures. I also love what you said around the focus of people, and that the root of adaptation and resilience projects is community. And I think that's a very important point for us to remember while going into COP and thinking about policy moving forward in the adaptation and resilience space, is that our projects need to be rooted in people, and it has to come from the ground up. Otherwise, like you said, our projects won't work. And then thirdly, what I loved what you said around we need to show solidarity and not work in silos, and really breaking down those silos so that youth are working with women, and that this organization is working with this organization, so that we're helping each other. build this community resilience and Pacific resilience. So thank you so much, Salote. That was beautiful sharing. Next up, I am honored to give the floor. And welcome to Mama Pele. But I guess while Mama Pele settles in, I will give the floor to Soqo, who is also on our call. Soqo Tafau is a 38-year-old Matai from the village of Falea De'ela. Oh, this is horrible. I'm Samoan and I like pronunciation. He's the son of Apineru, Tafau, and Fa'afio, who is married to Makirika, and they have 4 children. So Ula was educated at the CCWS College in Pesenga, and he is a high council of the LDS Church. He does amazing work in the community around adaptation and resilience, and is one of the grassroots leaders that we have a lot to learn from. So it is great to have you, So'ula, and I'm happy to give you the floor and have you share with us. We're honored to hear your thoughts.
Alofa, Brianna. We have a heavy rain right now, so hopefully you can hear me very clearly. Actually, you already gave my bio, and I am the one of the Matai in the village of Falisela. We have an active conservation called FEPS, Falisela Environment Protection Society. We work together with FEPS, work together with active citizens. I am the representative of active citizens, working together with them. We help a lot with the youth to protect and conserve the natural resources. Like mountains, rainforest, river, and also the mangroves or the ocean. We work for the R2R, Reach to Reef, together with the youth. I'm gonna share my screen.
If you just look down to the bottom of your screen is the screen share icon with the computer available for you.
Yeah.
If you just click that one and then choose the screen to share.
Yeah, we tried.
Yeah.
Is your presentation is
one moment.
if your presentation is something you can send to me, I can also share it for you.
I'm wondering if we can circle back to the presentation, and that will allow time for it to be sent to tech. Does that sound okay? Tech?
Yes, that's great.
Okay. So we will go on to our next panelist, and then we'll circle back to So'ula, if that's okay, So'ula. Yeah. Okay, and it's great to see Pelenise Alofa on the call. So I am pleased to invite her to give her sharing and to provide her reflection on the 3 questions. So a little bit about Pelenise Alofa. There's a lot that can be said about her. She's also known as Mama Pele to a lot of people in the movement. She's one of the giants and pillars to a lot of young Pacific Islanders who got involved in the climate space. She is the national coordinator of KiriCAN, the Kiribati Climate Action Network, a network of 10 organizations active on climate change. She is currently the country manager for Live and Learn Kiribati, which aims to educate, mobilize, and facilitate supportive partnerships in order to foster a greater understanding of sustainability. And like I said, with all the other speakers, I can say so much more about them, and I really encourage everyone to go and read their full bios and to look into their work. But until then, I would love to give the floor to Pelenise and hear her reflections on the 3 questions of resilience and adaptation. Hello, Pele. Oh, I think you're on mute. You're still on mute. There's a little icon at the bottom of the screen that looks like a little mic. And if you just press on that, that should unmute it. It's still not coming through, unless I'm the only one who cannot hear the.
No, it's also still coming through.
What we can also do is go to Gareth and then circle back to Pele. Is that okay, Pelenise? Okay, yes, I think we'll do that. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience. This is all in the theme of resilience and adaptation with these technical issues and with COVID and having to meet virtually. We're all finding ourselves having to show resilience and adapt to these technicalities that I'm sure we prefer not to have if we were able to meet in person. But thank you all for your patience. And thank you, Gareth, for being our next speaker. And I'm so happy to welcome you to give your sharing. So Gareth, and please correct me if I got your last name wrong in the beginning, is from Solomon Islands. He is currently holding the role of Regional Pacific Climate Change Collaboration, Influencing and Learning Project Coordinator. So that's a big role in the Solomon Islands, a part of the Oxfam Country Office. And you can go and read more about Gareth on his profile on the website. But until then, thank you very much, Gareth, for joining us, and we can't wait to hear your sharing.
Thank you so much, Brianna and the colleagues. And also, I would like to thank Youth for Pacific organizer for giving me this opportunity to share my story of adaptation and resilience. First of all, I would like to begin today by paying my respect to elders past and present, and I want to extend that respect to all the Pacific Islanders people here today in this platform or the forum. Today, I'm representing the Solomon Islands Climate Action Network. It's a network of CSOs working to amplify the voices of the marginalized and vulnerable people in the Solomon Islands to the impacts of climate change. So in this session, I will speak and share my perspective on integrating climate justice into adaptation and resilience in the Pacific. And I hope I will answer the three questions as I tell my story. So, as we are all aware, there are a number of community adaptation and resilience initiatives that is happening in the Pacific, supported by the climate change adaptation projects from bilateral, multilateral, and development partners. And whilst I acknowledge the great adaptation and resilience initiatives, we, the Pacific Islanders, are resilient people. Like the saying goes, we are not drowning, we are fighting. I think this saying really sums up how resilient we, the Pacific people, are. And I believe some communities in the Pacific today do not have the opportunity or the privilege to get the funding support for various, due to climate financing not trickling down to them, maybe, or because of the selection priorities. But that doesn't deter the spirited Pacific Islanders who are heroes and the people and culture who has traditional and resilience knowledge. So today I want to share my perspective on integrating climate justice specifically into traditional knowledge and food security adaptation in the Pacific. And before going on, in the Pacific, I think we don't really have, specific definitions for food security. We have the universal one that was from the FAO that talks about, having food security when all people, all times having physical, economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food. But then I also like one of the other definition that I got from ADP 2011, where it says food is secured primarily through subsistence farming, fishing and hunting, and trading, and of course selling products. So I think, for me, this definition of food security is kind of very relevant to the Pacific context. And, with the current shift at the moment, we are going from, locally produced food into, a mix of, imported food. So importantly, as alluded earlier, like food security in the adaptation is founded on the traditional knowledge, and that our forefathers or past elders passed on from one generation to another. In saying this, like long before climate change has become a buzzword, ancestors and elders used to survive food crises, agricultural epidemic disasters, climate-related events in the past. So to me, this is not new actually, but because of the huge economic development in the developed countries, we, the Pacific, were unfortunate to bear the brunt of climate change as a result of global warming. In terms of the success stories, of food security in the Solomon Islands, when we talk climate change adaptation and resilience in food, we actually talk about food preservation techniques. We talk about increasing access to local food and crop planting materials. We talk about food bulking or drought-tolerant crops, or organic farming. So these are some of the success stories in terms of adaptation. And if you look at those adaptation initiatives, they are actually rooted in the traditional knowledge. Traditional knowledge and the practices of indigenous people and the communities. So, for instance, in the eastern part of Solomon Islands, like food preservation technique is a story of climate change adaptation. So, like food preservation in a form of, I hope you all know the breadfruit tree. So this is one of the adaptation in terms of food security in the Solomons. In the eastern part of Solomons, they call it Nambo. So that breadfruit is dried, and that can be used, during tropical cyclones or disaster during wet seasons, and that can last even a year. Same with the other one, preserved pudding, where it is called masi in one of the atoll islands. So, looking at these adaptation techniques or preservation techniques for food, these are not, techniques that, from introduced techniques, but these are very ones that comes especially from the indigenous knowledge from our people. So how can communities and organizations ensure that these approaches and activities are resilient? This is where I want to emphasize, climate justice is very important. There might be a number of, adaptation and resilience activities that we benefited from, but if we're not taking into consideration climate justice in the adaptation and resilience activities, I am of the opinion that we are 80%, resilience, unless we engage and put into practice, climate justice, especially the human rights, then we are 100%. By this, I mean, if we forget about women, the youth, the people with disability in a project design or the implementation, or involving them in the climate change adaptation spaces, then there is less likely that they are informed or can make decisions that can support their resilience in the adaptation, their work. For us, how are these youth can be engaged in these adaptation and resilience platforms? I think for me, one very important one is we must continue to build the capacity of the youths, capacity building trainings. We must also involve them in the project design of any, climate financing projects. That is a key to, the sustainability of any adaptation activities. We must also involve youths in the campaigning activities. We must learn from each other, from other countries, how we can, adapt to the different issues of climate change. We must engage the youths, especially in the climate change platform. This is very important in community outreach awareness. And of course, youth and climate change policies must be developed to pave way for youth participation in national and regional climate change issues. So in saying that, my key message, for COP26, I think it's very important that we recognize the resilient knowledge that exists in the Pacific. This traditional knowledge relates to community adaptation, governance, agriculture and food security, water security, and environment. So we must give weight to this knowledge and its connection to human rights when making decisions about our future climate. Also, my other message is climate justice must be for all, not for some. And making the right decisions to protect the rights of women, people with disabilities, the elderly, and especially young people. Planning for any climate change initiatives must empower all these people to achieve climate change justice. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gareth. You just relayed a wealth of knowledge to us all. And there's so many things that stood out for me in particular, just everything you spoke about around traditional knowledge and the fact that we are the holders of traditional knowledge and we know exactly how to adapt to our environment because it is our ancestors and our people who have loved and cared for this environment for centuries. And so it is so important what you said around adaptation is founded on traditional knowledge, and successful adaptation projects are grounded in that knowledge. And so thank you for once again reminding us of that. And then also you spoke to so powerfully the fact that climate justice has to be for all, that it's not a phrase that can just be for some, that everyone must be involved in this dream of adaptation and resilience, and that everyone must be involved in project designs, youth, women, people with disabilities, and all those who are impacted, which is everyone. And so thank you so much for weaving that conversation so beautifully into our Talanoa, Gareth. Would like to welcome back the folks down in Falisela. Is everything good on your end to go again?
Thank you, Brianna. Sorry for that. I was trying to take my screen more photos, that I know that it's more powerful for my speech, but there's a problem with the connection. I'm sorry about that. So I'm gonna continue my presentation. Like I've said, we have an active conservation called FEPS, Falisela Environment Protection Society. The FEPS work together with active citizens in the village. So we work together with the youth to protect and conserve our natural resources like mountains, the rainforest, river, and mangroves and ocean. We work in the R2R, reach to reef. So in the Pacific island, we always have a natural disaster like cyclones, tsunami, and floods. So we work as a leader of the youth. We work together with the youth and the community to protect the community and also to protect the environment from the affection of the natural disasters. The youth are working for restoration to restore the habitats of birds and also the restoration of the native trees. We replant the forest, and also we replant both sides of the river in the village. In 2011, our river was get dried, so that's why the community and also the FEPS and also the active citizens was talking about what we have to do, what we need to do to let the river back. So that's why we talk about and we create the project to replant the native trees and also the environment. Also, we work with the youth and also FEPS and active citizens to replant the mangrove. Also to because we're looking forward that for the future generations, and also the youth always talk about the future, not right now, but the future. In our project, we work together with our stakeholders. We have some stakeholders from the government, the ministry, from the government. We work together. They gave us more knowledge and also technical of how we improve our project. And also we have partners, the UNTP, NGOs, and also the Samoa Conservation Society. We work together with that with them. They help us a lot. Active citizens and FEPS, we always involved in the youth trainings like green livelihood and also the boat in Samoa called Alofa team. So some of our youth members, they are in the team, the Alofa team. And as a feedback or as a result of our working together with the youth and also active citizens and the FEPs, we have two members of our youth. One of them, he worked in the fisheries, Ministry of Fisheries right now. So he starts from our project. He starts from the small beginning, but right now he work in the Ministry of Fisheries. And one of them, he work in the airline now. Right now, he work in the Samoa Airways airplane. Also, as in the community, as a leader of the youth, and also a representative of active citizens, we always involved in every program, every training, every seminar in the village and in the community. We have a Facebook page. If you want to add, and if you want to see more information about our active citizens and also FEPS project, you can click on the Facebook page, the Falisela Environment Protection Society. Click like and share. Kaftai lava.
Kaftai lava. As you heard, please go and like and follow the Falisela Active Citizens Project. You can find them on Facebook. Everything you shared from your village, it was so special, and I think it really is a testament to everything that our young people are doing to be resilient in climate change. And I think a lot of the times media, they only show a bit of the story of, Alofa, these poor people, they're impacted by climate change, but they don't show stories like the stories of all the youth in Falisela. And it's so powerful to have you talk about how they're preserving these ecosystems, how they're protecting our birds and our indigenous trees and plants and ecosystems. And I think that's an important story to tell. And I think that's a story that the leaders at COP must hear, because then they're reassured, like Gareth said earlier, and like other panelists have said during this gathering, that we are the specialists, we are the experts. Nolene said it in her last panel as well, that we have the knowledge. Falisela has the knowledge, and so it is these stories that must go to COP so that the leaders can learn from us, and that these lessons can go from ground up, because I think there's a lot that the world can learn from our islands. So thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you, Brianna.
Go and follow and show some words of support to our brothers and sisters in Falisela doing amazing work as active citizens. And so, last but not least, I'm very pleased to hand the stage over to Pelenise Alofa. If your sound is working. It's still on mute. Tech, are we able to unmute from your side?
No. Pelenise, maybe, I'm not sure if it is working for you. I think also the issue might be that the audio just didn't connect when you signed in, when you joined the conversation. So the other option could be just to leave and then come back in and request video and audio again.
Yeah, so Pelenise, if that's okay if you leave and come back in. Thank you everyone so much for your patience, and thank you so much for your comments. I'm seeing all such kind words for our panelists, and thank you again to our panelists for sharing so generously. I see one of the latest comments here to the panel. Thank you for sharing your knowledge insights, groundwork with us all. Thank you so much. That came from Naomi. There's some messages here from Mary, from Sherelle, all clapping emojis. And also, if you're in the chat, there is a link there to the Falisela Environment Protection Society. So if you click on that, it will take you to their page, and so you can like it. So please do. And we have Pelenise back, I see. Let's see if her audio is working. And thank you all for those who also have questions. We might not get to all of the questions just because of the little bit of technical issues we're having, but just to adapt to those, to this situation, I think what we can do is hold your questions for the networking spaces, because our panelists will also be mixed in those networking spaces, as well as if you wanted to contact them directly, you can go on their website and find their names and possibly emails through the organizers. Welcome back, Pelenise. How are we with our audio? Oh, okay. Still not unable to hear. In the theme of resilience and adaptation, I will take Salote's advice of not working in silos and asking for support and solidarity from Tech. Tech, what do you think is the best option from here?
It seems to be an issue on Mama Pele's side. If you click up the top, leave, and then come back in, it should resolve itself once you request to share your video and audio again. So just leave from the top, click the top left right button, and then you can come back in.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who's also sending through links in the chat. Okalani also just sent a link to the Samoa Conservation Society and the Green Livelihoods Program Facebook pages. So if any of you know of any resilience groups or projects, please put them in the chat, and we can follow each other and connect and be able to see all the amazing work that is often unseen. Thank you so much for bearing with us. Pelenise has just left the call, and hopefully she'll come back on and that audio would be sorted. It's been such a great panel to learn from everyone. I took so many notes, and I feel like a lot of valuable gems and reflection came out of this session for us to really think about and to also look into when planning for COP and what that Pacific voice and message will be. As we know, adaptation and resilience is such a big piece for all Pacific people heading into COP, because that really decides our compass of where we want to go as people who lie on the front line of the climate crisis. And so thank you all for joining this session. And thank you for bearing with us as we adapt to all the technical issues.
Bibi, I have Mama Pele here. She can talk from here.
Oh, amazing. Thank you very much, Michael.
Over to you, Mama.
I'll talk from here.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
But I'd like to say Mary and Alofa. And good morning to all of you. I have to leave my computer, talk from my telephone. The stories I can share from KiriCAN, from Kiribati, is one is that we were able to build the KiriCAN Resilient Village. This is where we are located right now. And why we want to do this was that part of the 350 campaign, or our message around the world, is to be able to share the message that we are not drowning, we are fighting. I think all of the 350 youth know that. That's the message we've been sharing for many years. We attend the COP meetings, we spread this message. But the thing that we need to do is show an example that we are resilient people, that we can adapt, that we shouldn't leave our country, we shouldn't leave our homes. And so we decided to come on this campus. It is a Lagoon Breeze hotel. It was abandoned. The owner is in New Zealand. They were trying to recover this place or to help rebuild the land. It gets inundated all the time. When there's flood, water comes through the seawalls, over the seawalls, and into the homes, into the houses. So the hotel was abandoned. So in 2019, when the water was knee high, we decided to come here. We asked the owner in New Zealand, can we use your place? Everyone thought that we are silly, we are stupid to come and move to a place that is underwater. Our message is, we shouldn't leave our land. Should never move. We should do everything we can right now to adapt. And fortunately for KiriCAN, we were able to receive some funds through projects and through families, through friends that sent us funds so that we can build, strengthen our seawalls. And we were able to resurrect this place, and it has become maybe, we can say maybe half green at this time. But everyone that has come to our campus right now, and many people are coming here because they could see that we are adapting, that we've changed the face of this place. So what's our message is a resilient village. We're still working on it. Water has stopped coming in. We are planting trees. We are planting gardens. So we just thank all those who have contributed to help us rebuild this village. So that's the message we're trying to show Kiribati people. We are not drowning, we are fighting. And this is how we adapt. You do not look at the problem, you turn and run away. No, you see the problem and you move forward and stop it. That's adaptation. So the other success story was that in Kiribati, so many times our community people come to see us, but they have lots of adaptation needs. They want the seawall, they have water problems, they have health problems, all these. We do not have means to support all of them. But one of the things that we do was that we do what we call a community integrated vulnerability assessment. This vulnerability assessment and risk assessment shows the village people and us what their real needs are. Do they have adaptive capacity or not? And if they do, what are the priorities? What should be done in their village or in their communities? So we've been working on that here on South Tarawa, because Kiribati government is doing a whole of island approach for the assessment. We are doing community-based. And we thank UUSC, our donor, for helping us. We did 5 pilot projects, 5 communities. And now we're moving on to more communities to do that. So because of that, we were able to move on to working with communities. You know, if you work with communities, you know you cannot reach all communities. And that's what we've been doing for the last like 5, 10 years. We work to communities, but we do not know how many communities are there that we have not reached. So what we did was we worked as a team and restructured the community-based organizations on Tarawa. And we ended up with more than 500, almost 600 communities. You know, the previous years we've been working, we thought we've reached so many people because we have been working with 100 people, 100 communities. But after restructuring the communities, we came up with figures like more than 500 communities, and more are coming in to be part of our team. So we helped to establish what we call the KiriCAN Community Initiative Association that registers all communities. It's not NGOs. KiriCAN works with NGOs as partners to implement adaptation work to communities. But working with communities, as I said, we have to make sure that no one is left behind. So we restructure and we try to get everybody in. So we were able to do that, and I think that's the first time it has ever been done in KiriCAN, and it's a big step for us. But I think one of the success stories is that if we want to do adaptation, always remember that you cannot do it alone. So in the KiriCAN Resilient Village, we have a women's NGO, we have a youth for the health, we have Live and Learn. This is all 3 of the networks in KiriCAN, but we have other members that are in their own offices, in their own locations. But we need to build a partnership to be successful in our implementation. And one of the things that we've done is we work closely with our government. If it's food security, we go out there to our what you call the food security side that we need to implement, and work with the government agriculture assistant. We supply everything. The tools, the seeds, whatever they need. If it costs us $20,000 to us, that's okay. And that's what we've been spending at this time. And before that, nobody looked at these people like they depend on the government all the time. But when we came in to support them, then we realized that our work is sustainable. When we leave, the AA or the agriculture assistant continues to work and reach out to all communities. So we have to empower whoever is out there that is doing adaptation work to communities. If we go direct to communities and we leave, it's not sustainable. We have to work with our partners like government, the faith-based groups, other NGOs. Yes, and I guess for the lastly is what is important is our education. So many youth are left, school leavers are left unemployed. They're looking for jobs, they try to go and study again, but they're struggling while they're left like this. So what we do is we continue youth training. There's a research team that we work with, and we train them on food security, water management, mangrove growing, coral planting, seaweed planting, and of course, climate advocacy. And the other speakers mentioned, traditional knowledge is important. We've been sharing to our youth that even though you're a school dropout, it doesn't mean that you cannot find a job. Learn a skill. Learn a skill and use that skill to create your own job, to be self-reliant. And so for our youth and climate advocacy, we continue to remind you and all of us that we need to be strong, need to be resilient, and continue to spread the message that we are not drowning. We'll continue to fight. And as long as you are young and you are a youth, you should be able to do this.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mama Pele. You are such an inspiration to so many of us, and you are what we call the OG of the climate resilience and adaptation work, and you are a giant in this movement, and a lot of us young ones are very lucky to get to stand on the foundation of the work you've laid for us. This has been such a beautiful gathering and session on adaptation and resilience. We got to learn so much from Salote speaking about the importance of intersectionality in this work and not working in silos, acknowledging that a lot of societal issues we're experiencing are interrelated and therefore must be addressed holistically. We heard from Gareth and the amazing work that he does back in his island, and really nailing down that idea that our adaptation is rooted in traditional knowledge, and that is an important thing for us to always remember, and an important thing for the world to acknowledge. And then we heard from Soqo and his amazing Mahian work, and reinforced that message that our villages and our communities are the experts. We know what's happening in our islands, we know what projects work, and therefore it is our voices that must be at the forefront when thinking about how we are going to adapt and how we are going to be resilient in the face of climate impact. And then lastly, we heard from Pelenise, who spoke about the amazing work that KiriCAN does and the youth and the people of Kiribati do. And I think something so powerful that Pelenise always on is that adaptation is not leaving. That's a non-negotiable for our people. We're not leaving our islands. We're here to stay because we are not drowning, we are fighting. Thank you very much to everyone who joined this session. Thank you so much to the panelists. Thank you so much to everyone that's engaged in the chat. And if you have any questions, please find our panelists on the website and reach out to them and support their work, because these are really our unsung heroes that need to be uplifted because their work is so important. And have a great rest of your day.